welcome to my channel. My name is Tara. Today we are going to be talking about my summer reading wrap-up. This is going to be one of my first ever YouTube book videos. We're going to talk about the books that I read in June, July, and a little bit of August. As I'm recording this, August is almost over. So for that time period, June, July, and a little bit of August, I read 8 different books. So we're going to talk about those today. Obviously, I don't read enough in a month to really make a full video based on just a single month. Although, during the month of July, I did leave my job and I will have some more free time because I'm currently going to school, not working full time. And so I'm hoping that I will be reading more and that I could be making videos like this much more frequently. Anyway, so the first book that I read this summer is Last One at the Wedding by... Should have these people's names in here. You're an idiot. The first book that I read this summer was Last One at the Wedding by Jason Rekulak. Now this book... I think this was my biggest disappointment of the summer. I was really looking forward to this book. I loved Hidden Pictures. I will say that Hidden Pictures I listened to, and then this one I physically read. So I'm not sure if that had any bearing on my enjoyment of the story, but I mean, I do know that this one was not as good as Hidden Pictures overall, but, you know, if I'd heard the characters' like actual voices, I don't know, might have had a different experience, but I did physically read it. I would say it's a 3-star. The ending, it had a little bit of like a twist near the end, which I kind of suspected later on in the novel, but it wasn't one of those things that was like obvious from the start. So that I did like, and that's the only thing that kept this from being like a 2 or a 2.5 star. Because, gosh, protagonist is a man named Frank, irritating, unlikable. He was so much. He was frustrating me to no end. Couldn't stand him. And then his daughter, hated her. Hated her. Like, there was not a single character in this book, like, even his sister, like, fosters children, and, like, the foster, that she has, like, I think that part of the story is supposed to be, like, I don't want to give too many spoilers here, but, like, I feel like that part was designed to, like, make Frank look more empathetic by the end of the book, and, like, oh my god, the way that he spoke about her, just how she was portrayed, like, it was just bad. Like, so much about it was bad. Very disappointing. It was slow at the beginning. The twist came, I think, like, maybe 75% of the way through. So then, like, the last little bit kind of, like, fizzled slowly. And I guess I would have liked, I don't want to say more tension throughout the book, but there was certain parts that were so draggy to me. And then also, like, just the way that the way that Frank, you know, went through this book and, like, how we got to where we got to in terms of, like, what was really going on. Like, it's only because he was crazy. Like, there's no normal father that would have behaved this way from the jump the way that Frank does. Like, he has been estranged from his daughter for years, and then she invites him to the wedding, and he immediately is, like, so aggressively being like, I don't trust your relationship. Like, it's really bizarre. It was really bizarre. You know, it's one of those things, you know, where it's like you need to have this stupid thing happen to make the plot points work. There wouldn't be a book if he just was like, cool, you're getting married, and just went to the wedding, right? That wouldn't make for a story. However, you really have to, like, you know, suspend your disbelief for this story, and yeah. Okay, well, that was the first one. Next we have Never Have I Ever by Jocelyn Jackson. I'm assuming that's how it's pronounced. It's literally spelled Josh. Ilyan. Ilyn. Nope, I spelled that wrong. Let's get cut. Okay. By Jocelyn Jackson. This is just like a fun thriller mystery. It was very solid. I rate this a 3.5 stars. This is one of those stories where the villain was written so good, and I was constantly like, get her! Like, I wanted the protagonist to take this woman down so hard. Like, I've never rooted for anyone more. Like, I was like, please, we need the downfall of this woman. She is horrible. Like, it was great. That part was great. I wanted to jump through the book, slap her myself. Like, they did a great job at creating a villain. That's for damn sure. And then once you get to the end and find out, you know, the really disgusting truth of this story, then it makes total sense why she's such a heinous villain. Yeah, definitely look at the trigger warnings for this book. There's some icky stuff in it. However, it's like super fast paced. The characters were compelling. I thought the plot was well developed. You know, there was some like repetitiveness, like near the end. You know, it's like a cat and mouse game between these two women and Amy and Rue. And they're just like, you just keep having kind of like the same scene between them. Like, it just keeps happening. It's like, okay, some of those maybe we didn't need to have every single one. Could have been a little shorter. But, you know, it was still a fun, compulsive story that I think anyone who is, you know, enjoys thrillers will definitely like. Like I said, trigger warnings though. There is one plot point that some people may not care to read about. So actually maybe two. There is a little bit of like also like fat phobia. Amy was a fat teenager, and the way that she talks about herself when she was fatter, and like there's a lot of stuff with that as well. Body image stuff that if, you know, that doesn't sit right with you, I wouldn't read this story. But overall, very solid. I liked it. Unfortunately, we didn't have any 5 stars, and we didn't have any 1 or 2 stars. So, like, everything is very middle of the road. So all these reviews are going to kind of be just like, yeah, I liked it. We're going to try to make it a little more fun than that, but yeah. So, the third book that I finished this summer was quite a beautiful, delightful read, and that is Beautyland, and it is by Marie-Helene Bertino. That's how I assume it's pronounced. It is a beautiful written story, and it is about an alien who is sent to Earth in like the 70s. I think it's right at the end of the 70s. And basically their planet is dying, and they need to know, you know, will Earth be suitable, and how do humans behave? How do they live? Is that going to be suitable for us? And so she's basically sent as a scout, and they have her born of a woman. A woman gives birth to her, and she lives out a regular timeline of a human, all while being an alien. And she's such a great character. You know, they portray a lot of awkwardness in, you know, feeling like out of place and like you don't even fit in your own skin. And, you know, I think a lot of people can relate to that. And gosh, there were so many times that I sobbed while I was reading this. It was really, you know, there was a lot of, I think that, you know, part of this being an alien, thing was a metaphor for being neurodivergent. At least that's how it felt to me. Because a lot of it was like she doesn't know how to express regular human emotions the way that she sees all of her friends do, and she doesn't feel inclined romantically to anybody, and um, she's just very observant and very matter of fact in a way, that most it's basically runs the whole gamut of her life, but we spend a lot of time in her like childhood and adolescence. So like when she is a teenage girl and all of her friends are experiencing the typical things that teenage girls experience, and she's just kind of like, huh, you know, can relate. Anyway, and um, enough about that. It's science fiction, but it's not like heavy science fiction. A lot of the times it does just feel like general fiction. It just kind of feels like a coming of age story about a girl who feels out of place in this world. And just a story about what it means to be human. And there's a poignant relationship with her mother, her best friend. Yeah, I really, really liked it. And I gave it 4.5 stars, 4.5 stars. It would have been 5. It would have been 5 if the adult story was wrapped up a little bit differently. You know, I really, when she was a child, it was so touching. There was a lot of touching moments when she was an adult as well, but there's like this, when she's an adult, what becomes of her? She becomes like an author, and that whole plot point was very just like dull. Like I just didn't care. At that point, I stopped. Like I was reading it so quickly. Like by the time I got halfway through, it was like, oh, I need to see what happens. But like, and it's written in such an interesting way. It's just like little blurbs and stuff. Like it's not long chapters or anything. I wish I had the physical copy, but returned to my library back in July when I read this. But was that July? Maybe June. I don't know. I don't have anything open for me to see. But yeah, a beautiful, poignant story. Definitely recommend for people who like science fiction that is based in reality, who like stories of what it means to be human experience, coming of age. It's all of those things very beautifully. I had to take a little break. There was a crazy thunderstorm, and it got really loud. There was lightning. It was super windy. So I think it's ended for now, so I'm back. So the next thing that I read was The Wishing Game. This story was sweet. I found it pretty endearing. It was, I really liked the writing, the atmosphere. The setting was very good. Takes place in a little, almost Willy Wonka-esque setting. So we have a woman who is invited to this competition on Clock Island, which is where a famous children's author lives, and he has been retired for quite a long time, and he has come out of retirement, and he's created this whole game where he invites some people that were fans of his when they were kids to compete, and whoever wins gets the only copy of his new book. And this is like a make or break situation for people. Like, it's going to be worth millions of dollars. People will be set for life if they are the winner. And so we are following one of the contestants. She is a teacher's aide, and she is trying to adopt a young boy that is in her class. I thought it was sweet. There is I've seen a lot of comments about the relationship between these two characters. That, it seems a little bit inappropriate, the way she's like constantly touching and kissing on this child that is not related to her, that is technically her student. Like if that was real life, she would not be working at that school anymore, etc., etc. I think some people are, taking it a little farther than I saw it in the book. I do agree, though, that she is very, like, dedicated, and it's immediately, like, this is my son now. Like, he is my son. And it's like, okay, you fostered him for one night. Like, it is quite intense. And, a lot of it is because she wants to make sure that he has, like, a safe childhood, because she didn't have a safe childhood. And that's actually where my biggest fault in this story is. I found it strange how much trauma she has from her childhood, because, basically the worst thing that happened to her was that her sister was chronically ill, always in the hospital, and so her parents think that it would be easier for them and more stable for their daughter if she went and lived with her grandparents, who, you know, she says they were very lovely, loving people to her. So, like, she didn't have a horrific childhood. She just doesn't feel loved by her parents. And it's like, actually, if they kept you with them and neglected you, then maybe, they didn't love you, but they put you somewhere safe while they were dealing with something. So I'm not really sure. That part was a little bit much to me. Just the amount of anger and the amount of trauma that she had from this was kind of silly. But overall, it was a really sweet story. I really liked the characters. There was a little, like, side love story that was cute. I gave it a 4. I like it. Emotional stories about, like, children and things like that, I tend to rate them higher than other books. I've always been a big fan of books that make me cry. That's one of the things, like, I love. Mess me up, make me sob, please. And this book did hit me in the feels a couple times. I remember shedding a tear or two while I was reading it. Yeah. 4 stars. The Nowhere Girls is by Amy Reed. Okay, and The Nowhere Girls is a YA novel. I was not aware that it was YA. This one I listened to on Audible, and somehow I just missed that tag when I picked it. But that's fine. A lot of the times when I pick up something that is YA that I don't realize, I do end up DNFing. Not a huge fan of YA books in general. I will say there are some exceptions. The Weight of Blood by Tiffany Jackson. So good. Anyway, but this is an important story, especially for the young reader, young women in particular. It is well written. It talks about the importance of female friendships and standing up for what you believe is right. And it basically follows 3 girls who are sort of misfits at their school. And one of the girls is new to their town, and she moves into a house and she finds some stuff in her room. There's, like, some writing and stuff on the wall, and she's trying to figure out what that's about, and basically learns that the girl who lived there previously was SA'd. She was R-worded by some boys in school. They weren't in school, they were at a party, from her school. And so she basically recruits these other 2 girls who are, like, considered outsiders at the school to help her to avenge this girl, what happened to her, and just kind of make sure that these boys pay for what they did, because it's kind of one of these things that, everybody knows that this type of stuff happens, but nobody's doing anything about it. And they say, you know what, we're going to do something about it. These boys need to be held responsible. And, it's powerful. Like, young girls trying to make a difference in a world where they feel powerless. I really enjoyed it, and, like I said, I think it's really important for young girls, and yeah, I thought it was well done. I liked it. 4 stars. Next we have The Lake of Lost Girls by Catherine Green. This one I think is my least favorite from the summer. It's, your typical thriller, murder mystery type book, dual timeline. And I think the dual timeline is really what ruined the book for me. If we had just followed Jessica's story, who is the lead character, the lead protagonist's sister, she disappears one night. She is like a freshman in college, and it is her little sister's birthday, and she goes home, um, which she, like, her college is in the same town basically as where she lives. It's just right up the hill, and so she drives into town, and goes to visit her family for her little sister's 5th or 6th birthday, and disappears. And, the sister has been wondering her whole life what happened to her. And then a podcast starts that is about this case, and then a body is found in a lake, and it kind of snowballs, and all of these things, now people are focusing on this case again, on her sister Jessica's case. And Jessica's storyline was great, and then the storyline of the sister, who is trying to figure out what happened, she meets a man, sorry. She meets a man, and he's like, I'm a reporter, and I'm, like, looking into this case, and he knows all this, like, weird stuff about Jessica, and he's, like, really, really, really involved, and, she just keeps making so many, like, weird, like, decisions. She trusts this guy way too much. Like, everything about it is just like, girl, what are you doing? And it just really felt unnecessary to, like, the actual storyline. Like, nothing really comes of her, like, figuring any of this out. Like, I don't know. I didn't really like her perspective. She wasn't in it enough for me to, like, care about her. So if it was just about Jessica and what happened when she disappeared, and because there's 3 other college girls that she knew that were pledging the same sorority that all went missing, and for some reason the school and the police decided that wasn't related. What? And there's a couple, like, twists, and one of them I definitely saw coming. And, it was just kind of meh. So, I give it a 3. 3 stars. Next we have The Unquiet Bones, which is actually how you do a murder mystery with multiple timelines, correct? So The Unquiet Bones is by Loreth Ann White, and this is a story about some missing bones that are discovered, and it ends up being a cold case, and there is a woman detective who gets put onto this case, and I really, really liked the detective, the lead. Her story, I was enthralled by, and I really wish that we got more of her story in this, which is the only thing that kept it from being a 5-star, because the ending of this one, chef's kiss. I was not expecting it. Totally took me by surprise. It was not what I was expecting. And I really, really like that. I guess looking back, there was a little bit more clues than I put together. I don't really know. I mean, there was a lot of people that were suspects. Like, they kept throwing in all these people. So, like, but if I thought about one plot point for a little bit longer, I probably would have been like, wait. But I didn't. There was also some very disturbing revelation at the end that I was definitely not expecting, which also makes it a little icky. It makes it a little bit more of an icky read. I would definitely, there's trigger warnings for this one. It is. But yes, I did quite enjoy it. I actually really liked it. And, we had multiple people in this story. There was so many characters, maybe too many characters. And like I said, I feel like that's why we missed out a little bit on the detective story, because she has her own mystery that needs to be solved, and that isn't discussed. Like, it's, brought in, the information is brought to us, we know what this lady is going through, but that's it. And I want to know her story, so I'm going to have to research and see if there's any more books starring, any more novels written by this author that features this character, because, whoo, that's a story I want to know. It really kept me on my toes the whole way through, and 4 stars, would recommend. And then finally, we have What We Owe. Now this one was a heavy one. This one I cried a lot. This one I cried a lot. This is a story about the effects of war. It is a story about immigration. It is a story about generational trauma. It is a story about DV. We have everything in this story, except maybe motherly love. That is the one thing that is very much lacking. The main voice in this story is a bitter, bitter woman. The way she treats her daughter is horrible. Like, it is, there were so many times that I was like, what is wrong with you? Like, why are you taking this out on your daughter? Like, I could not believe the way in which, God, her attitude was, it was crazy. It was crazy. That being said, the farther you get into the book, the more trauma you see that this woman has been through in her lifetime, and you kind of understand where she is coming from. Be it as horrible as she is. It's like, I guess this isn't really a spoiler, but essentially it's like she has a daughter, and she basically expects that her daughter is no, like, the one person that is actually going to, like, show her love, unconditional love and compassion. And anytime she doesn't get exactly what she feels like is the amount of compassion that she should give, like, that this daughter should basically put her mother above, even herself. And if she doesn't feel like she's living up to that, which she doesn't do anything wrong, to be fair. It's not like she's not living up to that. The mom just has unrealistic expectations, and she's just so cruel about it. But, like, it is written so beautifully. It is such a beautiful story, and I got so angry. It was heartbreaking. It was engaging. It was so quick to read. I really, really liked it. It was a 4. It might even be a 4.5. God, but it was, I can't believe how mad she made me so many times. And also, I really like that it ends in a pretty heartbreaking way. It wasn't all, like, wrapped up pretty with a bow. It's a very realistic story about how hard life is, and I liked that. I liked that a lot. Well, I think that is it for this video. And I'll be coming back to you soon with some spooky Halloween content. I'm going to try and read some more books in September than maybe as many books in September as I read for the whole summer. So I might be back with a September reading wrap-up, and if not, I will be back with some witchy stuff for October. I'll probably post maybe a tarot reading. I also have a book that recommends what you should read based on your zodiac sign, so I was thinking about making a video on that. And yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you soon.